Home with God, Chapter 16. You experience a three-dimensional world, but you do not live in one. Ultimate reality is far more complex than you may ever have imagined. And so again, we get back to the idea that the state of mind of a person at the moment of their death is the experience their soul will encounter on the other side. Yes, that is exactly what I am saying. I've said it over and over again here. Yes, but I keep revisiting it over and over again because something about that statement just doesn't seem to want to sit well with me, and I've been trying to figure out what it is. Now I think I've got it. Please tell me. That idea doesn't leave much room for comfort for those who are approaching death without hope. Those who find themselves in a state of fear or terror or apprehension or self-recrimination or doubt, nor for the families of those who are. I see where you're going. Well, I mean, not many people die as peacefully and as wonderfully expectant as you seem to suggest would be necessary for them to have a glorious experience. I would have to think that more people die in what would be the word apprehension at least, if not fear or dread or confusion or shock at the suddenness of it, as in an accident or whatever. I understand your concern, yet comfort comes in knowing that all souls find peace and joy and love. All souls move to stage 3 of death, the time of mergence with the essence. In the meantime, there is no such thing as pain, emotional, physical, or spiritual, in the afterlife. I mentioned earlier that even those who imagine they are going to hell and then send themselves there to do not suffer. They simply observe themselves having the experience, but without emotional connection to it. You said it was something like watching an instructional video. That's right. That's the level of detachment there is. You simply give yourself the experience in order to review it, pulling from it whatever wisdom there is to extract. But you do not suffer. In life after death, there is no such thing as suffering. Then what is there? Is there anything? Is there joy? Is there happiness? That is all there is. There is nothing negative. Nothing negative. Not a thing. But I thought you said that persons experience exactly what they expect to experience. That is correct. So what if the person expects suffering? What about a person who chooses to suffer, who feels that it's the only way they can earn their way into heaven or pay for their sins? I thought you said that a soul can experience anything it wants to experience after death. What I have said is true, and so you would experience suffering, except you would not, because it's as you said before, you're just watching and not identifying with the self that is experiencing it. Yes, and also because even you could identify with the part of yourself that is experiencing it, you would not. You realize that you're leaving me in the dust here. Let me remind you of something that was said earlier that could explain this all more fully. Yes, that would be good. Right about now, a fuller explanation would really be good. In the moment anything occurs that the soul experiences as not desirable, the very thought that it is not desirable causes the inner experience of the soul to be instantly altered. And so there is no suffering. Not even for the person who powerfully imagines that he or she should be punished. They would create the experience of their imagining, but they would not experience it as they had imagined, for the simple reason that as soon as they have the experience, they will choose not to. Even if this is what they really think they want, the level of awareness in the afterlife precludes the possibility of anyone willfully choosing what is not real. And the soul would know and understand immediately that the concept and the idea and the experience of suffering is not real. In the first stage of death, the soul comes to understand that the body with which it spent its physical life is not real. That is, it is not who the soul really is. In the second stage of death, the soul comes to understand that the mind with all its thoughts is not real. That is, it is not who the soul really is. All the thoughts of the limited mind, emerging from the limited perspective of human experience, are impacted greatly in the second stage death, precisely because the perspective of the soul in the afterlife is so much greater and so different from what it was when the soul was with the body. It is from the place of this enhanced perspective that the soul begins to create and experience itself. As soon as the soul sees and realizes that it is not a body, its perspective shifts greatly, as you can imagine. This is in fact what propels the soul into this third stage of death, when all thoughts, not just bad thoughts, but even their own thoughts of heaven, are dropped away, and ultimate reality is experienced. And so, even in the case of the person who believes sincerely that he must suffer, that he deserves to suffer, that suffering is the only way to redeem himself in the eyes of his God, the very idea of redemption and suffering as a means to achieve it becomes no longer meaningful within the enlarging perspective of the soul. The soul can watch itself trying to suffer in its own self-created hell, but the soul will come to see that such an experience is not meaningful to create. I didn't think that anything would be impossible to a soul that is expressing itself as the creator of its own reality. It is not a question of being impossible. It is a question of being meaningless. The soul would have no reason to create certain experiences beyond the fact of the remembering that is involved. Once the soul has remembered that suffering is not a reality but merely an experience created in the human mind, it will have achieved what it sought to achieve with the creation of its own hell, and the experience will thereafter be meaningless. This is because, in a sense, the soul knows too much to get anything more out of such experiences. It would be like a magician performing his own tricks over and over again for an audience of one, himself. I should think it would be pretty difficult for a magician to keep himself interested in his own tricks. It would be more than difficult. It would be impossible. It is in that sense, in that context, that it could be said to be impossible for the soul to suffer. But not even for the tiniest moment, not even while it was deciding to be interested or not. No, not at all. There is no such thing as the tiniest moment. Your question resides inside of your reality of what you call time, where things happen sequentially. Yet, all the things that I have described as happening to a soul after death happen at the self-same instant. Wait a minute. You yourself said they happen in stages, stage 1, stage 2, and so on. That is correct, according to your terminology. Yet those stages are experienced simultaneously, with each new experience erasing the old. And so it is as if the old never happened. You are what you are right now, and it is very much as if you never were anything else. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. You've just stopped making sense here. The challenge here is to speak in earthly terms of a situation or experience that is out of this world. Let me just say that all things happen sequentially and simultaneously. That makes even less sense. Things happen either sequentially or simultaneously. It can't be both. It can't. I am telling you that all of life is both. All of life is sequential and simultaneous? That is correct. Well, okay then, this is blowing my mind. I'm unable to hold this in my reality. Can you conceive of the possibility? Can you stretch your mind to be able to conceive of the possibility? There is no word for this experience in your language, so we'll have to make one up. Let's say that all of life is sequentaneous. It is sequential and simultaneous at the same time. I don't know what to say. I suppose that everything and anything is possible, and I'm willing to admit that I don't know everything there is to know about ultimate reality, but I can only go so far. Even if I could go there conceptually, I can't imagine being there experientially. I can't imagine the experience of it. Let me see if we can find some other words, some real words with which it might be explained to you, or made at least a little more clear. Fine, because I need help here, and I need it immediately. Or should I say I need it sequentaneously? Perfect. That's perfect. Now imagine with me a reality where time does not exist. Not in the way that you imagine. There is only one moment, the golden moment of now. Everything that has happened is happening now, and ever will happen is happening right now. This is true of all your lifetimes, not just the part of your experience that you call this particular lifetime or the afterlife. The difference is, in the afterlife, you know it, you experience it. Okay, but just a second. You just said that all of my lifetimes are occurring simultaneously. You mean all of my incarnations, right? Yes. But I also mean all of your many passages through this incarnation. Do you mean that I pass through this lifetime more than once? That is correct. And many possibilities, many experiences take place simultaneously. But if everything is happening simultaneously, that would mean there would have to be alternate realities. Are you telling me there are such things as parallel universes running alongside ours in which the I that is me is having other experiences? I am. Well, you told me at the outset that some parts of this conversation might seem way out to people, and you're certainly keeping your promise. Lots of folks would say that at least that last scenario is just plain science fiction. And it isn't. As I said earlier, this is science. This too is science. Talk of alternate realities is science. Do you think you live in a world of only 3 dimensions? Ask any quantum physicist about that. We don't live in a 3-dimensional world. You experience a 3-dimensional world, but you do not live in one. What does that mean? It means that ultimate reality is far more complex than you may ever have imagined. It means there is more going on here than meets the eye. I tell you that all possibilities exist at all times. You are choosing the possibility that you wish now to experience from a multidimensional field of infinite possibilities. And there is another you making different choices right here, right now. Another me? That is correct. Are you saying that I exist multidimensionally? I am.